be, battle related. It might be concussion because somebody is an athlete on the field gets brain injury. Or it might be just a simple progression of mild cognitive impairment, which will lead into Alzheimer's disease because of the normal age progression. So the question is that can we detect brain injury? And the other question I want to answer is that does early detection help? And this is a big $10 billion market, so that keeps us motivated to be able to help people in this area. So the answer is yes, we can, and the can means comfortable, accurate, and non-invasive way. If you look at 10 years ago, when we started, we realized that a sleep lab diagnostic would be very uncomfortable, high cost, and inaccurate because you're sleeping in an uncomfortable situation, and invasive. So a decade later, after a lot of R&D work we have done, now we have a situation that we can have a sensor system in your bed, in your own home, very comfortable. We tested this using the NIH phase 2 SPIR with 100 patients and have seen very promising results. So the way that our system works in a nutshell is basically when you have sleep problems, which result in a sleep debt, there will be different kind of movement arousal during the sleep. We will measure those. There will be respiratory upregulation during those arousals, and there's also respiratory variability. So we measure all these different parameters during the sleep, which will result into the chronic hypoxemia. And in this particular case, what we do is that we have this wireless sensor system that is embedded under the mattress sheet. So you don't see it, it doesn't touch your body, but it's very comfortable, ultra low power, low noise, very highly sensitive, highly accurate, and low cost. And we manufacture this here in the United States. So we captured this data during their sleep, and basically comparing this to other solutions that we say, okay, so what's the sleep lab situation? The sleep lab, as I mentioned, it might be accurate and sensitive, but it's not low cost, not non-invasive, and obviously not comfortable. There are variables like watches, like Fitbit, Apple Watch, things like that. Those are not accurate and sensitive, but they have other benefits. So our system basically combines all the benefits of these two systems in a very low cost manner. So once we get the data, it will go into our deep learning artificial intelligence system, get trained, and the training is done by physicians to actually diagnose the patients. And once we have done that, then we use some verification patient to verify the system for selectivity and specificity. And then now we have a product that we can actually use for future patients. We have a dedicated hardware development team. So we design all of our electronic circuits here in the US, and we build them in our Colorado facility. We also have a software development team that are developing our AI software system and maintain them. Our clinical trial team basically are the ones who take this device home, install it in patients' home, collect the data, and help them be comfortable with that. And of course, we have a very kind of diverse and experienced advisory board. We have Dr. Cliff Singer, who is the chief geriatric at the Acadia Hospital and is one of the top people in the Sleep Society that is helping us, as well as several business partners here. So our value proposition is, of course, lower cost. You see significant cost savings here versus millions of dollars versus 100,000. And we have had lots of sponsors in the past, DOD, NASA, NIH, etc. And we are also looking into raising $6 million fund right now. So I will stop here with this screen, which is my timeline of where we are and what we plan to do next. And thanks very much, everyone, for your attention. So time for questions.
Perfect. So now we'll open up to questions. Ollie, feel free to call on anyone or who's raised their hand, or if anyone has any questions, feel free to go ahead and just speak up.
Hey, I'll kick off. I just had an interesting question about your company. Could this ever be used for the general sleep study as well?
Yes, of course. For each of these different applications, they have to, of course, develop a new AI engine to work, but the sensor system remains the same.
That's amazing. Great work.
And while people are thinking about question, I can tell that sleep studies that are done today at home using like Active Watch or Fitbit or Apple Watch, etc., they basically have a single sensor on your wrist, 1 point of movement data. We have 32 sensors all over your bed, so we capture respiratory movements and also very sensitive sort of a small scale movements.
Just from a dual use case, something came to mind. My sister does sleep studies in children. Do you think that there's any possibility this could be used for a variety of ages and to look at the changes in sleep during development?
Absolutely. Actually, 10 years ago, we started with children in hospitals with special needs children, with the newborns, with mothers being opioid addicted. And then after that, we moved into like adults and other markets. So yes, of course.
I have one quick question about the sensors. Do they need to be placed on a particular type of material or surface for them to be most effective? And I'm thinking like you put them inside of like a sleeping bag to be able to collect the same type of information.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Actually, they spent several years trying to develop an auto-calibration algorithm for our sensors because different beds have different surfaces. So we basically embedded this into a fitted sheet that goes on different sizes of bed, different material. And the first time you install it with nobody on it, it will calibrate itself. And then once people sleep on it on the first night, we get the benchmark. Second night, we get the actual data. So yes, the answer is yes.
Hi, I've got a quick question about kind of the price point of this. Obviously, it's way more accurate than an Oura Ring or an Apple Watch or something. But is there a potential to tap into that market with that type of price point, but at a much higher level of quality?
Yes, we sell our device at $10K to the hospitals and clinics and things like that. But for consumer grade, we actually give our devices for free to the customers to install for 2 nights and return using courier. So we only charge $250 per report. So it's accurate and low cost for customers, but for hospitals, they can purchase the device and have it, for longer period of time.
Great, thanks.
We have a question in the chat that asks, can you point to any validation reports of this approach compared to the current clinical practice?
Yes, we have had a CIR phase 2, $1 million NIH grant for 2 years. We tested 100 patients using our system in parallel with EEG and actigraphy. And our system shows 90% accuracy in diagnostics, while other systems like actigraphy are much lower accuracy. EEG is similar accuracy, but it's much more expensive and complex. So we have done that study with 100 patients.
We have time for one more question if anybody has one. All right, well, I've waited the 8 seconds. That's the standard decode time. Thank you. Let's give Ollie a round of applause. If you do have any more questions, you can find him in his company in the corresponding Philo booth after we go through all the pitches. So thank you again, Ollie. Next up, we have Dessicore, and then Miwa, you are on deck, coming up next.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute myself.
No worries. We can see your screen, though. Perfect.
Perfect. All right. Well, then I'll go ahead and get started. Hi, my name is Brett Janis, and I'm representing Dessicore, where we're stabilizing biologics for storage without refrigeration. Between 2001 and 2011, 90% of potentially survivable deaths were due to blood loss that could be treated with a blood transfusion on the battlefield or in a general hospital. And additionally, up through 2019, blood loss was still a leading cause of preventable death on the battlefield. Part of the reason this is the case is because blood on the battlefield is complicated. There are 2 major ways that blood is available on the battlefield, either through coolers or through the walking blood bank program. The coolers can bring blood to the battlefield, but they're very bulky, they're heavy, and they can't carry a whole lot of blood to the battlefield. And that blood does expire after 42 days, which means that it's not a fully sustainable model. And the Walking Blood Bank initiative, where a warfighter can transfuse their own blood into that of a wounded colleague, is effective, but not everyone is trained in this procedure. That warfighter can only perform the procedure once every 56 days, and it requires grouping of warfighters by blood type. So neither approach is really robust or sustainable solution to the blood supply. Dessicore's solution is freeze-dried blood. It has an extremely wide thermal stability range. It's prolonged shelf life above 1 year, and it simplifies logistics by removing cold chain requirements. You can literally ship this thing ground, and no matter how long it takes to get to you, it should work when it reaches you. But the big value is that freeze-dried blood can be stockpiled. It's also very fast, it's durable, and it's easy to use. So we have a method of packaging where we have a freeze-dried blood in one compartment, and a compartment that can be filled with either water or saline, any level of purity. We can adjust for potential infection with antibiotics. And when you fill this compartment, it'll automatically break when it's filled to the correct volume for rehydration. So there's no measurement necessary, just retrieve it, fill it, squeeze it, and infuse it. The intellectual property that makes this possible was developed at the University of Louisville, where we use sonoporation to load every individual red blood cell with protectants at an extremely high rate. So this process is scalable, it's fully automatable, and we can prepare an entire unit of packed red blood cells in under 30 minutes. This technology is highly mature, and it was developed through the National Science Foundation, DARPA, Defense Health Agency, NASA, and the NIH. The current blood markets are extensive, but they're cold chain limited. So $28 billion a year is spent on blood products, 4.5 of which is in the United States, and our expected US military need across all of its blood components is $200 million. This is based on over 500 customer discovery interviews that have taken place over the course of 5 years. But the critical point to make is that this is the market for blood that is liquid, that expires after 42 days, and that ultimately can only be transfused at cold chain locations. Freeze-dried blood would expand the number of customers that could buy blood products. So the US civilian market, we've already got several willing pioneers for our product. Major blood banks have expressed extreme interest in stockpiling blood to prevent shortages, especially after the first ever US blood crisis at the Red Cross this year due to the sudden shortages occurring during COVID-19. Remote blood clinics that don't infuse blood often enough to be included in the system still do have patients that need blood. Car accidents, postpartum hemorrhage are the two major examples, and they want to keep blood that's stable until they need it. And finally, emergency medical services actually have the desire to look to keep blood on helicopters or ambulances to transfuse blood directly at the point of injury, just like the Department of Defense. So freeze-dried blood is a dual-use technology. Our regulatory strategy is fairly straightforward. We plan to have our preclinical validation and our good clinical manufacturing processes done by 2024. By 2026, we hope to have completed phase 2 clinical trials, and we hope to be authorized for emergency use for DoD acquisition by 2027 and have phase 3 clinical trials underway in 2028. To accomplish this, we have a team of experts. The three at the top, Dr. Janice, Menz, and Kopacek, are the co-founders who invented the technology and are experts in life without water and cellular loading. Bob Saunders and James Welch, between them, have launched hundreds of companies, successful life sciences companies, and have expertise in clinical applications. And Dr. Li Fong and Jed Gorlin are experts in government contracting and blood product regulatory pathways. With that, in conclusion, I want to say thank you. My name is Brett Janice, and I'm representing Dessicore, where we're stabilizing biologics for storage without refrigeration. If you have time, please see us at our Philo page. There's a QR code right there. And otherwise, thank you for your time. And I'd like to answer any questions you may have.
Great. Well, let's open up the floor. Does anyone have any questions for Brett?
Good afternoon, Brett. I just want to thank you again for your work as a paramedic in the street. I definitely see how this is absolutely amazing and very useful. Wanted to ask you, have you investigated any opportunities with the FDA for the pre-submission process? I think that's a bit of a fast track for what you're trying to do and allow yourself to be vetted and jump through some hoops before you have a formal meeting with them. Have you talked about that?
Yeah, we're scheduling a pre-IND meeting for this year. We were cautious because we know that this is a potentially long pathway. So we wanted to make sure that when we had our pre-IND meeting, we had all the data to answer the easy questions so they could get right to the hard questions.
Awesome. If nobody else has any other questions, I wanted to ask you an additional one. Are you focusing on red blood cells, and have you thought about the ability to for the infusion of thrombocytes for clotting factors as well?
So right now we're focused on red blood cells, but it's a good point you make that. There's a company, Cellfire, that is making thrombosomes, which are sort of a platelet-derived clotting factor. And there's several companies such as Velico that are making dried plasma products. Red cells have just been a uniquely challenging cell because drying techniques also result in the oxidation of hemoglobin, which is a concern we've addressed.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I mean, early in my protocol over the last 20 years, we were injecting copious amounts of saline, which, as you understand thoroughly, that that doesn't carry oxygen, and what you're doing does. So perfusion's everything. So congrats to you.
I guess if there's no one else, I want to add on to that. One of the things that we've been sure of the entire way is that we can recombine with these dried products. So if you want whole blood, for example, you can recombine freeze-dried red cells, freeze-dried plasma, freeze-dried platelets. The idea being to create whatever combination of whole blood or partial blood you want. And we've made sure that we're consistent with a mass transfusion protocol for all dosages of preservatives or anything like that.
Brett, I would love to understand a little bit more about, it's super interesting, and thank you for the presentation. I'd love to understand a little bit more about kind of the marketplace a little bit better, and if you see any competitors popping up, or I mean, you're disrupting a pretty big market. So if you anticipate some of the traditional players in this space to encroach on the types of ways you're retransforming the way blood is delivered and stored.
Yeah, so to try and be quick, because I know we'll run out of time soon. The numbers I gave are based on only the areas which we aren't really disrupting what's happening. I don't expect surgeons to switch to dry blood. I think that they trust liquid blood, but there are many people who don't have access to liquid blood. However, artificial oxygen carriers, I think, would be the closest analog, and Calocyte, I think is their name, makes an artificial oxygen carrier. But they're not a replacement for blood. They might do something similar, but there's about 2,000 proteins on the surface of a red blood cell that do a ton of things. And they're not just there to make hematologists pull their hair out, blood typing and things like that. They have functions, they have clinical impacts. So what we're offering isn't just a bag of hemoglobin. We're offering as close to possible a human red blood cell.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brett. So that's all the time we have for questions. If anyone wants to learn more about freeze-dried red blood cells, go talk to Brett and the Dessicore team at their fellow booth. All right. So next up, we have Miwa and 3 firefighters who are on deck and coming up next.
Hello, everyone. My name is Magdi Iskander, and together with Dr. Shao and Chris Leon, we are the Miwa Technologies LLC. Our technology is a cardiopulmonary stethoscope, which is a chest patch device, wireless device that will help us discover the mysteries of the lungs. Why lungs? Because many serious diseases, including COVID, kidney failure, congestive heart failure, they're all associated with changes in lung water content. Management of this disease requires assessment as well as continuous monitoring of lung water content. Yet, all existing technologies, failed to provide accurate, non-invasive, continuous monitoring, never mind low-cost solution to the continuous monitoring of lung water content. None, zero. That was the status until we discovered the cardiopulmonary step. The cardiopulmonary, that's not very fun. The cardiopulmonary stethoscope. A chest patch technology that uses RF signals, and measurement of these signals allows us to measure vital signs, heart rate, respiration rate, as well as change in lung water content, as you can see on the chart here. We have successfully completed a clinical trial that is sponsored by NIH on dialysis patient, heart failure patient, as well as individuals, healthy individuals, and the results were excellent and published in the literature. We have developed a compact version of the device, and the device is safe. As a matter of fact, is safer than cell phones. I have a demo of the device. Demo is not going for some. Okay, we'll let. We also participated in the NSF Corp program, and in customer development, we interviewed more than 100 MDs who provided us with these comments, and that is why we started the company. As far as funding so far, we are relying on federal contracts, which allowed us to have a partnership from medical center from across the countries. We received recognitions and awards, NSF Discovery, White House listing, website listing, as well as others. We have an excellent technical team, as well as business team that include MDs, as well as IB attorney. We have done significant progress. We have 3 patents on these technologies, completed NSF, completed NIH-sponsored clinical trials, and we actually have some initial communications with FDA. We have also addressed the potential market, and we identified two markets, one in the commercial domain, which include bridge clinics, as well as home care, as well as DoD. DoD potential market. This is in the dehydration, as well as for monitoring en route soldiers. The technology is, my mouse is acting crazy. The technology is amazing, it's transformative, it's non-invasive, cloud monitoring, wireless, low cost, and what we're asking for is development partnership that will help us go through FDA as well as the commercialization of the device. I'm sorry about the behavior of the mouse, and I'm grateful for your listening, help, and support from that received from this program. Thank you. Sorry. Any questions? Any questions?
I can go ahead and ask one. So in 2020, I had a really severe case of COVID, and I definitely had fluid in my lungs. And one of the things I did at the time was I kept 3-hour vitals throughout the entire process. Is this a tool that could be used during the early onset of new diseases to quantify liquid in the lungs over time as a way of sort of determining how a disease behaves in the population?
That is exactly what it does, is describe how the disease behaves or how response to treatment during, of course, the treatment process. Because we monitor change the lung water content based on initial baseline that was developed using like CAT scan or X-ray, and we can take it from there for continuous monitoring of long water content. The answer is exactly what it does. With high sensitivity, based on, of course, the result from the clinical trials that we publish in literature already. Any other questions?
I know you mentioned them at a very high level, but would you mind going into more in depth to the DoD applications that you touched upon?
Sure. Both dehydration, there are studies in the literature show the dehydrations are associated with change in lung water content. And people monitoring this through urine samples or through different kind of respirations methods and so on. But we focus on the ability to use this, our technique, to monitor dehydration through lung water content. And the way it's going to happen is, and we were funded actually by the Army CERDAC to look into this. And the way we see it happening is we will have the sensor stitched. So these are textile sensors that will be stitched on the shirts or on a sports bra for the case of female soldiers. And they can always be used in order to have it to monitor. It measures just change, let me finish. So it is through dehydration. As for the en route, that's obvious, of course, because beside all the other sensors and medical instruments are included in monitoring en route injured personnel, we can also measure change the lung water content and try to evaluate things about heart failures or kidney failures or associated disease. We measure average change in lung water content. So it doesn't distinguish between different compartment, enteral, cellular, extracellular, and so on. We measure average change in lung water content, which really is what is needed at this stage of seeing reaction to disease, recovery, or the need for additional attention and so on.
All right, and we have time for one more question. Wally asks, how resistant is it to motion artifacts?
That is very critical question because we have a patent on this actually. Having two sensors next to each other is the coupling between the two sensors as well as sensitivity to motion. We have overcome both of those. And in the demo, actually, for the UC San Francisco clinical team, we had one of our graduate students on a treadmill, walking and moving and so on, and they were watching it on Zoom to show any sensitivity to artifact. That is very important. We have significantly overcome this problem through a patent design of the sensors. Very good question. And of course, it's listed in our list of patents.
All right, thank you, Magdi. Brett, sorry, we won't be able to get to your second question at the moment. Feel free to visit the team over at their Philo booth after this is done for a follow-up. So thank you very much, Magdi. Next up, we have 3 firefighters. And then on deck, we have Light Range. Light Range, you're next after 3 firefighters.
Good afternoon. My name is Michael Marr. I'm a career firefighter for the last 23 years and founder of 3 Firefighters. Last summer, while on duty at the fire department, I was on the ambulance that day and we were dispatched to a structure fire. Per our protocol, when the ambulance arrives, we simply join up with another engine, perform tactical advancement into the structure. So I did so. I joined engine 1. We went upstairs. We put out the fire. And after about 15 minutes, I exited the structure, had products of combustion all over me. was very diaphoretic, out of breath, and I was sitting on the back of the apparatus. And the fire chief came up to me and said, "Mar, I thought you were on the ambulance today. Where were you?" I said, "I was on the 2nd Division with Engine 1. He said, "Well, great job," but I did not know that. So that let me know at that time that we had a very large problem in the fire service. And simply stated, incident commanders simply do not know who of their first responders are inside or out of the hazard zone in real time. Believe it or not, in 2022, we're using Velcro name tags and dry erase boards to account for personnel during the entirety of an emergency. So with the Ohio State University and the leading provider of post-incident documentation for emergency providers, I designed an elegant solution to solve this problem. My smart tool placed by a first arriving firefighter to communicate with the gear that I wear. Antennas are placed within the gear that I wear, and as I pass the smart tool placed at the entry and exit point, it counts me in or out of the hazard zone in real time. This information is sent immediately to incident commanders so that they can make tactical decisions based on my location and that of others on the scene. Most importantly, every time the incident commander assigns a tactical point into the structure, in addition to if I'm in or out of the structure, this is time stamped. This allows incident commanders to have better use of their personnel, and very importantly, allow them to know how much time I've been in and out, and if I'm available to go back in to perform my tasks safely. The opportunity is very large. By allowing for the first time incident commanders to take advantage of their personnel, a skilled set of hands on scene, knowing if they're well rested and healthy enough to return to work, we can help save lives and property and be more safe doing that. I need to add that over $14.3 billion in a year is lost due to loss of production because of injuries from firefighters. This is usually because of injuries incurred due to exhaustion and overwork. The market for my technology is very large. As you might understand, there are 3 to 5 fire trucks housed in every station in the United States. These stations total about 51,000. Because 3 to 5 of my tools and technology will be on each apparatus, there are 232,000 on every truck in the United States. Because there's 3 to 5 trucks in every station throughout the world, totaling 131,000, about 524,000 is my total saturation internationally. Because I can sell my technology as a kit to first responders, over 2.6 billion can be made annually throughout the world. After selling my technology as a kit, I will operate a software as a service model where incident commanders and their fire departments can utilize this software on a monthly basis. My DoD targets are that of the United States Air Force. That's because I have traction here in the great state of Ohio with Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Because the state of Ohio was thoroughly invested in my technology over the last 3 years, I've been able to earn the opportunity for a direct introduction to the base commander at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base later this month. I have great traction with my intellectual property. My patent for my technology, my smart tool placed by a first arriving firefighter, has been allowed by the USPTO. I have an application that's been allowed for Europe as well. And as I referenced, I've been working thoroughly with the Ohio State University. I've licensed their technology, which allows me to embed antenna into the protective gear that I wear as a firefighter. My next steps are to earn demo opportunities with decision makers within the DoD. I've been very fortunate to participate in Decode, where I've learned to draft an unsolicited white paper, as well as a solicited white paper that I can use to satisfy SBIR solicitations to advance my technology and further research and development to make to market. I have an amazing team of career firefighters that I have on my team here in Central Ohio.
Sorry, Michael, I hate to cut you off. We're a little bit over 5 minutes already. Let's see if there are any questions about this tech, and then we'll see if there are areas we have to kind of go in depth that we weren't able to get to just yet. So I'm going to open up the floor to questions now. Does anybody have any questions for this for Michael and the 3 firefighters group?
I'll certainly be in your Philo question or room to ask some more questions. But so you mentioned the door boss and then the scene boss. Those are two different products.
Yes, sir. And I appreciate that question because the software, the door boss, the smart tool can be used separately. So if you're familiar with tactical procedures within the fire service, flow path control via door control is very popular and necessary. The door boss facilitates that. If one is not keen to door control, you can simply use that smart tool to communicate with gear. Or if you don't want to invest in the technology used in real time by incident commanders, you can simply utilize door control. If you don't want the technology or the door control, you can simply use the software for personnel accountability. We essentially made a very sophisticated yet easy to use digital digital replica of the Velcro board that we're using currently.
Thank you.
I had a question related to this, and again, thank you for your service with what you're doing. We're actually right next door to the Louisville Metro Fire Department. We see real time what you guys are kind of doing. Does this product also have a market perhaps in law enforcement or EMS where just that RFID tracking, if you could stick the tracker on the door like you're doing for any kind of interaction with the ambulance or with the car, just keeping track of where people are and what's going on?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a worldwide exclusive license with Ohio State to embed their technology into textiles used by first responders as a whole, not just firefighters. I've expanded that use indication per the agreement while I'm participating in this program because, like you, I think that anytime you're moving an asset, whether it's a human asset or a tangible good into or out of a space, you can account for that and need to account for that. So being able to timestamp and identify each of those assets in real time, and while my software provides post-incident documentation, it's very, very useful for archiving and logging and such. I'd like to add something if I'm allowed to, Maxwell. Is that okay?
Yeah, you have about 9 seconds. So either a question or if no one has any, whatever you want to say, Mike, go for it.
Cool. Well, I was literally a couple of seconds away from my slide deck before I concluded. So I got all that out, but I just wanted to say that due to Decode, I've been able to be admitted into FRSI sponsored and funded by National Institute of Standards and Technology, or NIST, where I'll be able to investigate or use my technology as they're investigating a location of first responders within 1 meter. And this is absolutely giant. I owe everything to this program and being able to earn that opportunity. I was introduced to the opportunity by a peer in a breakout session. So absolutely amazing. And I can't wait to charge forward with that with NIST.
Awesome. That's great to hear. Yeah, so great timing too. I'm glad we got everything out. So if anybody has any more questions, you know where to find them in their Philo booth. Thanks so much, Michael, for the 3 firefighters presentation. Next up, we got Light Range, and then Hydronet, you're on deck. So Hydronet, you're after this presentation. Michael, I believe you may still be screen sharing. So I think if you want to exit out of that screen share real quick, and then we'll let Light Range. Perfect.
Awesome. So all right, so my PowerPoint's acting up, but I'll just get started. So good afternoon. Today I'll be presenting on behalf of the company I'm part of, Light Range Technology. I will be talking about our innovative benchtop radar cross-section measurement system, which is the first of its kind in a new market we're trying to bring into light. The first thing I want to talk about is the importance of radar cross-section measurements. also known as RCS. RCS is a key characteristic in characterizing electromagnetic structure. This tool allows us to define how detectable a certain structure is, given how much of a radar signal is intercepted from the structure. RCS is a critical tool for designing and validating the stealth of various structures for the Department of Defense's land-based, seagoing, and airborne platforms. RCS also plays a vital role in target identification. In order to take RCS/inverse synthetic aperture radar measurements currently, an electromagnetic structure, such as an airplane or tank, is placed inside a big test chamber on a rotating platform. In the industry, these chambers are called Anechoic Chambers and can often be as big as football fields. Once inside the chamber, the structure is then rotated. Since the structure is rotating, a Doppler shift return can be sent, allowing for the characterization of its cross-range information to be analyzed. Downrange RCS data is gauged by the radar's ranging characteristics. So in order to fully understand the challenges that current test facilities face, I need to talk about anechoic chambers. As mentioned earlier, they are the test chambers where RCS measurements are performed. While testing for various electromagnetic structures is possible for targets such as airplanes and tanks, the task becomes rather difficult when we start talking about naval vessels. These vessels are so large in size that it is very inefficient to bring them onto land and put them in these chambers. This is very costly. This is where our technology comes into play. On screen, we can see the USS Arizona, which is about 185 meters in length and 30 meters in width. With the help of 3D nanoscribe printing technology, we were able to produce the USS Arizona with the same features, but with a reduced size of 1.8 by 0.4 millimeters. Reducing the scale of the model allows us to frequency scale to the near infrared range from the RF range, allowing for a faithful emulation of unscaled to scaled. So here we can see the first version of our product, the world's first benchtop RCS measurement range. This range is made with off-the-shelf components, is portable, and targets can be generated within hours. Some of the use cases include RCS measurements of large, complex DoD equipment, as talked about earlier, emulating radar performance in complex battlefield environments, such as cities, mountainous regions, tropical regions, etc., and also emulating antenna performance in complex wireless infrastructure. So I just want to give a summarization of the key points that LightRange is able to offer with this new technology. We are able to provide capabilities of measurements on large electromagnetic structures that are beyond the capabilities of existing solutions. Measurements are rapid, high accuracy, and of low cost. The team involved behind the scenes is led by Dr. Yi-Fei Li, who is an expert on photonic devices and RF systems. Michael Benker and Lucia Depra assisted in the experimental and modeling to help this come to fruition. This work is being funded by NAVSEA and the SBIR STTR. Collaborations have been worked through the University of Arizona, the Naval Undersea Warfare Center, and TIPD. One of the recognitions this technology was able to obtain was the prestigious Best Paper Award in the 2021 International Topical Meeting on Microwave Photonics. So here we can see the progression of the technology from initial research at the University of Massachusetts of Dartmouth to our final end goal of being able to put this product on the marketplace. Currently, we are trying to obtain NAVSEA STTR phase 2 option period and are currently seeking DoD users and commercial users, as well as advancing our technology readiness levels. So here's how to contact us, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Lucio. Do you have any questions for Lucio and the LightRange team?
I do have a quick question, if I may, please.
Yep, what is it?
When you try to use a scaled model
Yeah.
And you try to make measurement on a scale model, you also have to scale the environment, right?
Yes, exactly.
So if you have a ship, for example, in the water, I'm going to get RCS for a ship in the water, you have to scale the properties of the water as well, up in frequency in IR, and have to, I think, change conductivity and so on. So can you tell us some more about how you scale the environment surrounding your models to get realistic results?
So right now we have not worked on scaling the environment down, but we have just scaled the targets down in order to show that the proof of concept is real and this actually works. And we've gone excellent results that are very comparable to actual or non-scaled up systems. But regarding the environment right now, we are currently still working on that.
Because there are some technology, old technology in the Navy where they were doing something in scaled models, and there's something called the lead made out of lead, the lead tank, because they are simulating salty water by lead to scale up the conductivity and so on and make the measurement there. So you are getting in that area of scaling the environment as well in validating the results. Very good.
That is right.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question.
Any other questions? All right. Well, I wait the 8 seconds. If anybody does have questions, you know where to find them at their Philo booth. Yeah, we'll go ahead and go to the next one. Thank you, Light Range team. Thank you, Lucio, for that presentation. Next up, we have Hydronet.
Can you hear me all right?
Yep, whenever you're ready.
All right. My name is Tommaso Melodia, and I'm very excited to introduce Hydronet today. Hydronet's mission is to bring the internet underwater and to empower the underwater internet with AI-driven and software-defined technologies. So what's the problem we're trying to solve? Today, if you need to connect different things or assets underwater, assuming that you don't want to deploy cables, which is expensive and time-consuming, you have a problem. Traditional radio frequency wireless technologies, what you use for Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, or your cell phone, don't work in water. And it's just the physics, right? Radio frequency waves are absorbed by the water. So there's been a few underwater communication technologies that have been developed over the years, some of them commercial. For example, the Navy has been using for a long time acoustic modems that use sound to create point-to-point links. But communication in traditional acoustic modems is slow, and you can't create networks. There's also optical communications, which is fast, but only works over a few tens of meters and requires clear water. And there's other options like magnetic induction that are at an R&D stage, but are limited to short ranges only. At Hydronet, we are developing a software-defined underwater networking technology that can realize Wi-Fi and mesh networks with ultrasonic, acoustic, and optical waves. It's based on our fully programmable platforms that enable in-water communication, sensing, and AI processing and analytics. Hydronet will enable for the first time underwater networks of static and moving assets. Looking at typical applications, thanks to Hydronet's modular design, on short-range links, we expect to have performance comparable to optical. On medium-range links, we expect to be 20 times faster than existing commercial devices and 8 times faster on short-range links. By the way, our technology works. We're conducting a phase 2 DARPA-sponsored CBER, and we tested it in swimming pools, in the Boston Harbor Marina, and in Narragansett Bay through a cooperative research and development agreement with the Naval Undersea Warfare Center. Our technology is protected by 7 patent families, 6 of which have already been granted. And we believe we'll be ready to sell our software-defined modems after extensive testing over the summer. Now, Hydronet is not a point-to-point technology. It's a networking technology that can create Wi-Fi or mesh networks, provides high transmission rates, for example, to stream video, is fully programmable and virtualized, and with more flexibility in serving diverse applications and needs, with the capability to perform AI-powered algorithms for inference and control. Here's a summary of how Hydronet's technology compares to the existing underwater communication technologies. And in short, it uniquely provides higher data rates, fully programmable networks and AI-powered algorithms running on device, edge, and cloud. There's a large and growing market in defense with the growth of underwater robotics, in connecting underwater vehicles and other sensing devices, and in smart ports and shipyards for real-time command and control of multiple wirelessly connected UUVs for ship scrubbing and inspection and management, security surveillance, and disaster management. There's a number of applications in the network blue economy, environmental and scientific monitoring, including understanding the causes of climate change. And last but not least, real-time and continuous monitoring of underwater infrastructure, including oil rigs and reefs and offshore wind farms. Arguably, the oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico could have been prevented with remote monitoring and control systems. And also smart fisheries and aquaculture, a big opportunity to help solve the US seafood deficit with innovation in this space. Here's a product roadmap. In the next 6 months, we'll start commercializing the Hydronet wideband modular modem, the first ever software-defined underwater modem. Then we'll focus on our network offering with the Hydro Mesh and Hydro Wi-Fi products, enabling plug-and-play network operations. 2 years from now, we'll move from selling network hardware to offering managed services covering the entire life cycle from design, deployment, operation, and maintenance of underwater network systems. Here's our team, which includes scientists, proven entrepreneurs, senior experts in the industry. We're early stage, we're funded by DARPA, Blueswell, and the Rowe Institute of Northeastern, in addition to an NSIN. And we're Hydronet, enabling the blue economy through the most efficient, scalable, and secure software-defined platform for real-time, high-speed data communication underwater. Happy to take any questions.
All right, thank you, Tommaso. Let's open up to questions. Who's got any?
Well, I'll jump in. Tommaso, I think it's very fascinating. I mentioned to you before, it's I have a lot of enthusiasm about what you're doing and why you're doing it. It seems like it's just one of these unaddressed use cases. My question is a little bit more geeky. I assume that the modems you're developing will be flexible with all sorts of different types of modulations, waveforms, et cetera. In other words, more like a software-defined radio as a fixed standard. Is it correct? So
Right.
Users could adapt this, I assume, very easily, right? To a whole bunch of, okay.
Yeah. So that's the whole idea. And really, in many ways, it's the holy grail for underwater communications, in the sense that the underwater channels are different in different environments, and they change fast with mobility and change in environmental conditions. So being able to adapt the waveform to the conditions in the field is crucial.
And I assume that any deployed Hydronet network could easily talk to, say, a buoy that talks to a satellite and issue alerts like I'm seeing something or something like this.
Yes. So the idea is to create multi-domain networks by means of, there's two possible ways to do that. In Hydronet, we have buoys that have satellites or LTE connectivity and that can connect with two acoustic modems underwater. We also have a visible light front end, specifically a blue light front end that can cross the water-air interface because of the nature of propagation of that signal.
Cool. Fascinating project. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg.
We have a question from Brett in the chat. What do you imagine is the maximum range for your system?
Yeah, it depends. So I haven't gone into a lot of the details, but we have swappable front ends, so we can connect the system with different analog communication modules. And so we have a low frequency module that can operate between 0 and 50 kilohertz that we anticipate will be able to connect up to 2 kilometers. It hasn't been tested yet over those ranges, but that's what we think we'll be able to do.
Great. We have time for maybe one more question.
Sorry, I just had one quick question then. Do you think that this can be made affordable enough that it could have recreational uses? I can think of advantages for internet and scuba diving or other kinds of applications like that.
We think it can. Obviously, it wouldn't have all the functionalities that we're trying to include in the current modem, right? You know, ability like processing signals with AI. That's not something you would put in a recreational product, but there's definitely ways that a version of the modem that is, you know, sort of streamlined with basic capabilities could be made affordable. Probably in the, you know, $1,000 range, something in that range. Yeah.
Great. All right. Well, that wraps up Hydronet section. As always, find Hydronet and their Philo booth if you're interested in hearing more. And then last but not least for our presentation today, we have Matrix Space.
Okay. Everybody, I will okay, you should be able to see that screen okay?
Yep.
Great. Greg Waters, Matrix Space. I'll briefly, we are a company formed in December 2019. We're resident in the Costas Research Institute of Northeastern University, Burlington, Massachusetts. I'll briefly touch on just the strength and the potency of the core team, as well as the independent board, which was formed last December. I think these startup companies are really about people as much or more than technology or applications, but very strong and motivated team. And our two main locations, all US based, Burlington, Massachusetts and Hoffman Estates, Illinois. Now, in terms of what we do, we really do two things fundamentally well. We extend human five senses on the ground or in vehicles or in the air. This is sensor fusion, dramatically different than just the optical sensing that we're used to today. We connect everything, which has the benefit of extending the machine intelligence and also making this very intuitive and user-friendly for people to control large groups of intelligent machines. And where it's appropriate, we extend human response. A event, a threat, a hazard can either alert a human being or autonomously alert, for instance, a smart drone or vehicle. And that is the second part of the product family, is autonomous flight and vehicles. In terms of what we do and what we're selling, the first product that will actually reach full commercialization will be released late this year is, to our knowledge, the world's smallest, lightweight, and most capable radar. That is about the size of a Kit Kat candy bar, weighs about 10 ounces and fits in your hand, but that is a phased array radar at a very disruptive price point that can be adapted to all sorts of applications. It was specifically designed for UAV usage, but is now being used in both UAVs, fixed security like perimeter defense or enterprise security, as well as recently vehicles. This is part of an active cyber phase 2 with the Air Force right now, along with the next product, which is a mesh network I'll show you. But late last week, we were just awarded a directive phase 2 with the US Army, which will combine this, the mesh network, as well as the autonomous response for vehicles on the ground. So if you will, this puts radar within the reach of everybody now. The second thing is the radar, coupled with optical and coupled with potentially other sensors like thermal, dramatically extend the human five senses. We've got the machine intelligence behind it that makes that information and that staggering amount of data useful to human beings. The second thing is you want these smart sensors or vehicles or aerial vehicles to talk to each other. And if there's an existing network, like what Tommaso just presented, or satellite, or cellular, great. We have all of those interfaces in our products, but almost 100% of the time, our customer base has blind spots. They want high bandwidth communications outdoors. This is not really meant for indoors, and it doesn't exist. Wi-Fi does not scale to that distance. Cellular is often unreliable. And that form factor is, to our knowledge, basically Wi-Fi on steroids that will give you hundreds of megabits of mesh communication to a kilometer and beyond. And this sets you up to have a very elegant command and control system. Now, between those two capabilities, and I'll dwell on those, what can you do with it? What problems do we solve? Well, you can think about smart cameras, sensors, objects scattered around fixed locations, like a site security, et cetera, that now are incredibly smart, see in the dark, see through smoke, fog, et cetera. And these are in very late stage prototype and active system deployment now. From what problems do we solve for the warfighter? There's several. We extend the human five senses. It's mobile. These things can be fixed, or they can be, they're lightweight, can be run from a solar panel or a battery. They can be attached to vehicles or small UAVs, for instance. So both in terms of extending what people can sense on the ground or in the air, but also the command and control system with that mesh network can integrate easily to legacy systems, create a new system. And essentially, if you can work a smartphone or a tablet, you can learn this system in a day. So in summary, we extend human five senses on the ground. Our view of artificial intelligence is not to replace people, but simply to extend the capabilities of people and make that very easy to do. We have a very nice way to bridge into existing systems and interoperate with them, or act as a greenfield deployment. And the two items I'd leave you with is we aspire to become the global thought leaders in two areas, which are software-defined sensing. You know, how do we take the obvious improvements to sensing hardware that are happening every year, make that very elegant and smart, right, in terms of what does all that data.
Sorry to cut you off, but we are a little bit over 5 minutes already. Want to make sure we have time for questions, and then feel free to go back to that if.
Yeah, thanks, Mac. And I'm done, not cutting me off at all. Any questions that you might have? So Max, I believe I must have done such a good job that I have comprehensively covered any questions. Why don't we give up my Q&A time and just keep moving?
No, I mean, I'm happy to do that, but you're actually the last one. So I will do, wait 5 more seconds. Everyone has been furiously typing out a question and is only just making their way to the chat now. But if not, that was in fact our last presentation of this group. So first off, just want to give a huge round of applause to everyone here. You guys all did really well. It's so clear how much progress you've all made since the start of the accelerator just 10 weeks ago. I know the Deco team is really proud of all of you. We will be popping into all your booths in a bit just to chat and see how things went. Two things I would ask from everyone now that all the presentations are over. The first is for companies, as you know, please go ahead to your Philo booth in just a minute, not yet, after all the announcements are done, where people who are interested in talking with you, some of whom were not in this Zoom room, so they may never have seen your presentation, but they're just interested in your company and in your tech, that's where you can chat with them. This goes for everyone, including our tech companies. So our folks from government and industry, go ahead and in a bit, find your way to those Zoom rooms those Philo rooms of those companies that you're interested in. Please make sure that when you enter a Philo room of the company, scroll all the way to the top so you can find the Zoom link. So once you're in the Philo room of your company, go in, find the Zoom link, join the Zoom. That's where you'll see, faces and screen shares, and you can talk all about next steps and things like that. So that's number one, is head to your Philo rooms, join the Zoom links. Number two is before you all leave the general Philo event today, please make sure to fill out the survey that Decode has. This really helps us make sure that when we do future events like this for future companies, that we're giving the best experience possible. So you can find this survey at the bottom of the main Philo page. I'm sure Emily O will ping you guys once more. This will not be the last you hear of a survey. Please, 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 if you could just take 90 seconds, fill that out. that would be super helpful. Cool. So with that, are there any last minute questions or thoughts or concerns or questions?
I typed in the chat, but I did have a question for Matrix Space. I just was trying to think about how to frame it. Do you have, I guess, what would you consider to be your sort of primary dual use applications?
Safety and security is the quickest one to monetize. There's a lot of them, right? But mobile or fixed safety and security, you think about optical cameras and the way they're used, they're dinosaurs. You know, they see almost as well as our two eyes, but you literally just usually record on that. Now take optical camera, low cost radar, potentially, LiDAR or thermal on that, and now you can see in the dark. You can do, if you put that together in a form factor about this big, that can be put on a drone or in a post or in a vehicle, you've got orders of magnitude more things you can do it on that. So just that's the software defined sensing angle of that. Some companies want autonomous response. As an example, one of our first field trials will be chasing birds away from airports, right? You detect the birds, hard problem to do. Right now, the state of the art in American airports and every runway is people go detect birds and guys with shotguns go out and pick up trucks and shoot or chase the birds away. Now that's a perfect application as an example for 6 autonomous drones to take off, use the radar information, go chase the birds away, et cetera. So I could go on, but you can get all sorts of variations on that theme of where autonomous safety or hazard detection and some level of autonomous response, it could be a vehicle that drives 5 miles an hour, for instance, is a good one too. And I think that covers a lot of the applications we'll be shipping to next year.
Great. Yeah, looks like we did have a question after all, Greg. So with that, you guys are all free to go into your file rooms. I'll stick around just for a little bit if anybody wants to ask anything one-on-one. But if not, thank you guys for this part of the presentation, and I'll see you all in your file rooms.